afternoon. Happy to see all of you again on this interesting panel. So we'll continue our discussion with many of you about another interesting topic, infrastructure, how to accelerate the deployment of infrastructure in the region, and what are some of the hot topics around infrastructure deployment globally, but also in the Middle East. So with our esteemed panelists today, we will discuss 3-4 major topics. One is about infrastructure sharing. This is a major trend we have seen across the industry, across all asset classes, fiber, towers, and so on. We'll discuss also the criteria for accelerating the deployment of networks and infrastructure, but also some of the trends that we see being advanced by new technologies, how this is shaping the networks of future. So this is the main topics we will be discussing. And my first question is for you, Günther. Hi.
Hi.
Ooredoo is really making the headlines with this announcement of the partnership with Ooredoo, Zain, and the Tasks, creating a major towerco in the region, over 30,000 towers. So this is good. This goes in the way of promoting infrastructure sharing. But there are also other countries where operators are not willing to open their networks because mainly are afraid of retail impact. So from your perspective, Ooredoo's perspective, how do you see infrastructure sharing impact the competition in markets? In Qatar, for example, but also in other countries where Ooredoo operates?
Very good question. So
easy one.
A very easy one, yes. I think infrastructure sharing, the world we go into is one where the magnitude of density that we need for our networks is much higher than ever before. So if you go back to the old days of GSM, you had a base station every 5 kilometers, basically. Now we will go into a world where we need great density. Great density brings its own challenges for every operator. So that will drive infrastructure sharing, because in some places it might be the only way that you achieve your targets. You have to partner. Partnering as a concept, I think, is quite natural for most operators. And in infrastructure, as soon as you go into small cells, as soon as you go into event coverage, you will do these things. So I think on one hand, commercially, there's an incentive to do it, but also technologically and time-wise, there's a huge incentive to do it. And we certainly have committed to that. We did it for the World Cup, where we were in Qatar using common infrastructure, for example, for the stadiums. We are using that for the metros. These are two examples. Qatar is a small country, but in bigger countries, it's certainly something that in the rural areas has a lot of appeal for both sides. And I think it doesn't really, because I think that's the hidden question, competition stays alive with that. That doesn't do anything to competition. It's just a way to get dense coverage to places where otherwise you can't go.
Perfect, thank you. Stelios, I know you love discussing engineering topics, and I would love to hear about how you managed to put your core network on 3 racks, but that's not the question today. What I would love to discuss, I mean, Vodafone Oman has been almost 2 years now since the launch. You describe yourself as the digital challenger in the market. Let me ask you maybe one question about the regulatory hurdles maybe you faced while launching this new operation, and how did you navigate through this?
No, thanks. Look, really good opportunity and something good to discuss. For us, quite frankly, I would not say we had regulatory hurdles. In fact, I think the market was conducive to allow us to do it. For us, sharing was the enabler to get us to launch. So we worked with the tower company for sites. We worked with the existing providers for data centers to actually have where to put our core and an IT stacks. We used the fiber company to use dark fiber and get our backhaul connectivity to sites. We had discussions with the other operators. Yes, sometimes they got a bit challenging on sharing directly with them, but ultimately it wasn't a technical thing. It came down to some of the commercials, like Gunter was saying, but never a showstopper. So in fact, our ability to launch, even with COVID, I mean, I hired half my team without ever meeting them because we'd have to do everything online at that point. But we got through it. And so really, I think that was one of the big, great things we had in Oman, that we were able to do these things. If there was one thing that back then was non-existent, was hyperscalers. So the ability to have public cloud in country was not really there. This has changed, so now finally this is happening. And that will really help on the evolution of cloud native capabilities and so on. But I think we were in a lucky position that we could do all of this, and that's what enabled us to actually bring Vodafone Oman to fruition.
Good. Good luck for the future. Switching to you, Samir, during yesterday's introductory panel, we have really had some interesting discussions with your colleagues, Tony, and discussing how it's difficult sometimes to have these trade-offs between short-term perspective and deploying something that might not generate enough return on investment, at least not immediately, and which is difficult to explain to shareholders. So I would love to hear maybe your perspective on how do you make these trade-offs today? How Telis has been running for decades, so how did you manage to do these trade-offs between investing in something that's bringing impact and value immediately and something that might not yield some great value creation until decades sometimes?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it's not an easy one to get to. Luckily, Telis is actually...
It's not the easy panel, so that's why.
No, it's true because, as you mentioned, some of the challenges and some of the ways to address them, but Telis had the privilege to actually do infrastructuring on the radio side for almost 20 years. And there are immediate cost savings, obviously, because instead of building thousands of sites across Canada, which is geographically a huge country, you're now, working with a partner that is able to geographically split this cost between you. So there are immediate impacts. That's an easy one to take to the board and say, hey, listen, you don't have to pay for the 100% of it. We're going to be, 50% of it. And this way, there's a win-win. Yeah. But there's also a downside in terms of the challenges to manage this. So yes, of course, you need a very good regulatory, but it really comes down to the commercial one-on-one partnership. There's thinking of the mind that the competition out there is not specifically on who's got the best radio. The competition is actually on the service level that you provide. And the competition is also on the customer experience that they bring and the attachments to the services. I recall the days when we were building Do together and we had challenges just to have the site sharing on a site level. And across the 7 Emirates, you'll find very unique deployments here where we have Al Ain, for example, we have sites right next to it, Do and Etisalat. This was in the history, so I'm sure the progress has evolved now where infrastructure sharing here is actually a bit more accessible. But I think from the Telis experience, we can really take some really good lessons learned on the mechanism, how to avoid the scalability, how to avoid competing on things that actually don't really matter to the end user. But I think that's the main advantage. To take it from a costing point of view, I think the short-term rewards are obviously the cost. The long-term rewards is that you actually focus on what matters to the end user. And this way, both organizations that actually invest in this infrastructure sharing come out winners at the end.
Thank you, Samir. Maria, switching to you right now. Something we have seen, globally, is that the way we finance or financing investment in network is as important, if not more, than defining the right strategy and implementing it. So, based on your experience, I know that you have done a lot of work in this space. What are the innovative financing models that we can rely on to invest in networks? So, how can we help secure investment for these networks?
It's an excellent question, and the gentleman, they described very well their strategy, especially Vodafone Oman story was very interesting, how you created everything from scratch. But the truth is, the ROI, return on investment into network, is not meeting the expectations of carriers globally, and we know it. It started from LTE and going down the road right now. So especially with COVID-19, then the requirements on actually enhanced mobile broadband have increased, and you need to roll out your network, but at the same time you're not making money on that. You need to think of how to get rid of your bad debt and offload it from your balance sheet. So one of the options I think is viable is to make a spin-off, and it was one of the models that carriers globally have done. They created a separate legal entity like NetCo or TowerCo or FiberCo, and this way they actually managed to make additional profit, right, from leasing that out. But at the same time, they help the companies who are just starting and don't have enough sites, right, to start their business, right. So statistics says that companies which rented out like 75% of their sites reduced their cost of operation in the first year by 60%. So it's a win-win situation on both sides. And I think Vodafone Oman is a great example here.
Good. Thank you. Daniel, good to see you. Maybe to complement the perspective that Maria shared, there is another angle I would like maybe to focus on, and which I believe is also important, is policy making. Not regulation necessarily, but policy making. So based on your experience, the past projects you have worked on, how do you see this aspect accelerating or bringing investment into the ICT sector? How can it help accelerate and secure investment in the ICT and telecom sector?
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be here, first of all. Thank you for being the moderator of this panel. Look, I think acceleration of investment is something that is bound to how the regulatory environment is. So everyone's talking about how regulation needs to be conducive, and as you mentioned, in markets where you can decide on what the technology model is going to be. So of course you've got spectrum assets, how quickly can you get spectrum, what kind of sharing models are there. We've been sharing for a long time, yeah, it's not a new concept. So we've been doing passive sharing for a long time, we do roaming agreements, so we know how to work within the industry. With the concept of neutral host, of course the challenge becomes that the more commercial aspects need to come together and make sure that the industry is working together, operators, netcos are working together. So getting the right technology assets in place, what needs to be done is important. I think also there are a lot of new business models, right? So we need to look at what kind of revenue share is there, what kind of elements come in as you go into this neutral host models, and allow that. And the regulatory environment needs to allow all that to come together. And if you look at this market, I think there are, of course, a lot of regulatory initiatives in place, and we see quite a lot of good progress. But I was in Africa a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how duplication of infrastructure is a real issue in Africa. You know, there is no regulatory environment that allows you to build and build and build and not be able to see that there is a possibility of sharing. And then the operators and others maybe do not want to open, like you said, you know, to neutral host as well, because the commercial model doesn't work. So I think the regulator and down to the municipality needs to work together to be enabling some of these better. So you allow the infrastructure investment, but not just allow investment, allow it in the right place. Make sure there is no gray areas where you can build and have that access wastage, which we just cannot afford. If you look at rural connectivity, again, in the broader part of the world, it is a problem. It's a real issue in how you're connecting people today across the rural areas. And if we are able to build in those areas rather than duplicating infrastructure, it's important. So I think from our experience, both regulatory bodies, municipalities, governments are coming together in certain markets which are setting examples. I think UAE is a good example. Bahrain is a good example where we've seen some municipalities come together to allow people to be able to sharing on the in-building services. So those examples need to be replicated in other markets.
Hearing you, Daniel, you mentioned sustainability. I mean, I think this is a good point. I just want to step back and take the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. For you, Gunther, I think we have heard a lot about what you have done during the World Cup, how you designed a state-of-the-art network. How did you consider this sustainability, environment impact effect in your decision-making and for your future network deployment? So how do you embark this criteria in your decision-making?
Very good question. And I think one of the things that is kind of beautiful in our industry is innovation works for us. So if you think back 30 years ago, our toolbox was one-dimensional. It was one macro site. And if you had a problem, a coverage or indoor coverage problem, you needed another macro site. Nowadays, we are much more diverse. So the toolbox has a much bigger variability with several kinds of small cells, with the dot solutions, where you can really good bring coverage to the places where you need it, capacity to where you need it, and that all in a very measured way. So I think that is one way where innovation has really helped us. Another factor that helps us with 5G, there's much better radio capabilities of these elastic RANs where the base station can help each other. So all of that is helping also sustainability, because in the end it reduces the amount of resources that you need. It reduces the amount of power you need. In combination with what we said in the panel before, 5G Advanced will bring energy efficiency futures. So not every band will be fully blown the whole day. There will be intelligent mechanisms to reduce it and expand it when needed. So I think this is something that we considered very well. We have done, in the run-up to the World Cup, a complete network modernization together with our partners. That network modernization has brought a much higher level of efficiency and power efficiency. So that is something that we have taken into account from the beginning. And we are counting on further features to help us. What we're also doing now, and I think we are not alone in the region, we have sites that are diesel generator powered because there is no public power there. And we are now tackling that and trying combined solutions. On the one hand, combined with better batteries, so that the diesel generator runs less, and then also with solar. And these are our contributions to a hopefully better and greener world.
Thank you.
We need to talk.
I would like maybe to jump to another topic, which is we've been talking about a lot during the summit, which is AI and new technology. So I know we have a dedicated panel to AI and all its advancement, but I want to talk about it from a network and infrastructure perspective. So Maria, questions for you. How AI can help improve network monitoring, network operation, and what efficiency advancement does it bring?
You're absolutely right. We talk so much about AI during this conference, so I'll try to be more precise in the aspect of a network. And one of the examples is Open RAN, which we have not talked much about. As you know, Open RAN, there is an orchestration layer on top, which is called SMO. Part of SMO is non-real-time and near-real-time real intelligence control. So when non-real-time RIG feeds the data to near-real-time RIG, it combines it with AI and ML tools and algorithms, and this is exactly what helps you to with the use cases related to 3GPP latest releases, right? Such as massive MIMO optimization, traffic steering, QAS, QAE, energy savings, which we talked a little bit during this panel discussion. So this is a real example on how AML tools can help you with network deployment and network operations.
Okay, thank you. Paul, maybe I would like also to hear your perspective on this aspect too, on AI and how AI, machine learning is helping improve network operations.
Yes, so as you said at the very beginning, we discussed this AI topic quite often during this event, but let's say on very general level. And first of all, you know, we touched many times generative AI. My personal opinion is that this generative AI is not for network operation, at least right now. The reason is that generative AI works fine if it is applied on the big amount of data. Then, of course, you know, you can experience exactly the same what we are experiencing by using Chat GPT 4.0, for instance. Yeah, but network operation area is, let's say, still close area, and the amount of data is much smaller. So if you would like to apply this kind of AI there, the result will be not so good as you can expect. But still, we have, let's say, this standard AI where you can define concrete algorithms which should support concrete areas. And this is the part which definitely can boost network operations. And for instance, in Comarch, we decided to inject AI algorithms into concrete modules like fault management, performance management, inventory management, customer experience management, and etc. And thanks to this, we can provide concrete use cases to our customers related to predictive maintenance or anomaly detection and many others. But I would like to mention maybe just one use case, which in my opinion is related to network operation, but also to network sharing. It is a module which is called MIRA, multi-intelligent resource allocation. It is located to, let's say, orchestration of the network. So in general, this module is analyzing the data from different data sources like inventory management, like performance management, and on the fly is deciding how network should be reconfigured to fulfill requirements of concrete services, requirements of concrete network needs. Based on this verification, this module is creating some recommendation, and later on this recommendation can be automatically also realized on the network. And of course, this module is quite generic, so can be applied to RAN network, core network, transport network, to data center. And recently we organized a very interesting POC together with Vodafone Germany, Vodafone UK, and Orange France. And the goal of this POC was to reduce energy consumption in areas where 2 or more operators are providing their own network. And especially it is related to areas with low demand. Yeah? So all of them, you know, they have their own network, but the goal is, you know, to somehow minimize this energy consumption. Yeah? So the idea was to use our MIRA module to analyze the situation in such areas, and based on the requirements of the network, our module was obliged to decide which operator will be treated as a operator on guard, and the rest of the networks can be switched off. Yeah? And the results of this POC were very, very positive. But what I would like to mention here, that of course we are talking about AI, but we can't forget that to realize concrete use cases, we need still good quality of data. Yeah? So AI will not provide us any positive results if we will not feed this AI with proper data. So still, we need the base. We need, you know, proper inventory solution with proper quality of data. We need dynamic inventory. We need dynamic performance management solution, which will, you know, provide proper measures. And only in such situation where this base is, you know, properly set, we can think about AI use cases.
Perfect. I'm glad you said this because, Maria, you said we need to discuss concrete cases, or you say that we need to have something specific. We have the chance today to have someone representing an operator who has done a lot and tested a lot of AI cases. So we have talked broadly about them yesterday, but Samir, Tedros has been experimenting and implementing a lot of AI use cases. So I wanted you maybe to go into deep details, but I would love to hear about the challenges that you faced beyond the POC, the proof of concept phase, when implementing on the run these AI use cases. What are the challenges for you, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so
two steps.
So I think just to give some background, we actually, when I joined Teles in 2018, there was a small team of data analytics experts that started to gather around the use of the general available data in the network. So every event in the network, subscriber attach, subscriber moving, roaming, etc., all of those are captured as events in the data. So our journey started with a simple question. If we apply the rules we apply to ourselves when we productize a service which is secure by design, private by design, resilient by design, at that moment, I think the inception of the idea to create what is now insights by design started. So obviously there's the end customer data, which we anonymize and we utilize to perfect our network throughout the design stage, the planning, but also even commercially. Where's the next store is going to open? That we used our own data to be able to utilize what's the best choice for a store location. And we started sharing that also as a service to some of our customers. So the journey over years started to grow. At this moment, we have a Chief Insights Officer reporting to our Chief Operations Officer with over 100 full-time employees, probably a couple of hundred more contractors that have in-house developed all the APIs required to take all the data from our networks, analyze it for our own internal consumption, but also how to benefit some of our customers with it. So the journey from that's the data that exists, but how do you use it on the operation and maintenance side? As mentioned in our previous panel, our own team working on a digital marketplace that's going to be a front-facing topic, portal to allow our customers to learn, buy, get, use, pay, and service all our telco assets, starting with IoT and moving into smart home devices, and from there into other products and services. We actually automate in using AI some of this infrastructure that we have access to through API developments, creating of new application, instances of applications run on our virtualized network infrastructure through AI, meaning some of the intelligence that we created, now we own the IP too. And that, of course, is a great lessons learned for us. It wasn't done, but because we partnered with the right partners that basically started to work on, here are the APIs, here's how to train models, we started to use that. So the second thing I think we did this year was also very unique. So a bunch of us executives went to on executive training sessions. So this one was at Stanford. We met with some of the world-leading professors on generative AI and AI in general. And we started to say, how is a telco going to transform if we don't actually practice what we preach, which is let's just go out there and create some groups of very concentrated efforts that they actually could take ideas. So a lot of our own employees were really encouraged to come in, and some of our like C-level executives on weekly calls listening into ideas that are being submitted from our own team members, evaluating them into this is OPEX reduction, this is revenue generation, and so on. And of course, then the idea was to run through very quick sprints to experiment with those internally, and then proof of concepts become proof of values, and from there, minimum viable products into a minimum likable product that we'll actually want to market and go to market with. So again, you should really put your yourself in the shoes of if you don't try it, you won't learn. And of course, with partnership on the RAN, we work with our vendors, Nokia and Samsung, to make sure that they practice what they preach, and some of those self-optimization, self-healing networks, how to recover from faults, etc., are automated. We test those in our lab, and we have a full floor of our indoor labs that are caged for RF interference and so on. We go into real detail, down to the bits and bytes, but we keep this know-how with our employees. That's very important to us, that our people actually get to use these tools, all of them, and then this know-how is something that we will share with other operators as well.
Okay, thank you very much for this insights. I like the partnership point. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. Stelios, let's look at the future, networks of the future. You are the digital challenger, so that's why I started by asking you this question. How the deployment of 5G Advanced, we have been discussing in the previous panel, is, I would say, impacting or helping you envision the network of the future of your operations. So how do you see things? How the fact that you are working on 5G Advanced is helping you shape the network of the future?
Yeah. So look, and I think a lot of us have touched on these points today, but if I think of some of the things for the future, I'll start with the efficiencies, and all of us have been talking about efficiencies. So with technological advancements, we will do stuff in a more efficient manner, either through automation, AI, or the energy side of things. We've talked, I've seen a number of things about HAPS. Now, I don't know if it's going to be HAPS, it's going to be the satellite, but I think when I think of the future, I think there will be no coverage holes anymore. Now, where I am currently in Oman, big country. There are big parts of the country, big desert areas that have zero coverage. I think all of that is going to go away as we move to the future. People need to be connected. You know, I think someone in a previous panel was saying if they see 3G, they start to have a panic attack on their phone. This is the thing. We need to have that connectivity, that ability to really have a great data experience. And I think definitely, again, linking back to the efficiency, more and more sharing will happen with our operators. We need to find the ways to not all of us building us up. So let's reuse, let's do things from the start together, okay, even if it is neutral, okay? But I think definitely as we move forward, sharing will become more and more prevalent.
Thank you. Paolo, you've mentioned some of the innovations during your previous intervention. Actually, I would like to hear from you about the innovations you see come in, like edge computing, software-defined networks. So what do you see, what innovations do you see coming in the future?
Mm-hmm. I think that is quite connected, yeah, all these topics, you know, virtualization with edge computing, with self-defining network, all of them somehow connected. And what, for instance, we are doing, you know, to be in line with ongoing initiatives is decentralization. And maybe it sounds strange because it was even mentioned during this event that best of breed approach was a long time ago. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking of the decentralization of solution, which from the perspective of the end users is still treated as a one system. However, for instance, edge computing is intended to move the whole data processing closer to the user, and to, of course, you know, do this dynamically. We need OSS, which will be also there, will be located close to this part of the network. Yeah? So we are now really considering how this decentralization to move part of OSS close to this edge. This is called like MEC, yeah, and do the whole analysis, all calculation really close to the customer. Yeah, so this is how we see this innovation, and where we are, you know, targeting our system.
Okay, but maybe just following on that, Daniel, with this development of edge computing, what does the future look like for distributed network? I mean, do you see any opportunities or challenges there for operators and players in the telecom sector?
Absolutely. I think there are both opportunities and challenges. So first of all, like Paolo mentioned, that there is a element of decentralization, and you know, when it comes to edge computing, and we've been talking about this for a few years now. It's again not a new concept, and we've seen a host of new use cases that come across. Actually, my colleague earlier mentioned that we did a trial with DO on reduced capability devices, and these devices are going to be very critical for when you get into the edge, because you need to optimize performance of these devices, make them long-lasting, wearables, and so on. So I think the device ecosystem is going to grow. So the opportunity is there for us to be able to decentralize, of course, reduce latency and all the things that come with it, but in reality, be able to monetize and, again, hopefully optimize the total cost that comes in for the operator, because you take the backhaul away, you do a lot of processing on the edge. It allows you to use your transport layer a little bit better, and you know, allow different devices to be more transparently working together towards the edge. So I think that's an opportunity to optimize the overall performance of the network. The second thing I think which is going to be critical as these devices come across is what use cases can we really make this work? Because many of us can probably show you 200 different use cases on the edge that we've been talking about for 5 years, but really when we come to the enterprise area, this is going to be very critical. Manufacturing is a good area to be looking at when we see some of the use cases coming forward, where if you go to our factory in Finland, in Oulu, which is on the north, I wouldn't recommend you go there now because it's extremely cold. But if you do go there, you will be able to see some manufacturing use cases which are focused on delivering that MEC capability and allowing different processes to run on the edge as well. So we have to clearly define what use cases brings the right ROI, the capability of devices as it evolves, and take that. Of course, there is a little bit of challenge. There's data governance challenge. How do you bring that forward? I think there's security challenges. All of those that we work with across in other parts of networks also present the same challenge on the edge as well. But I think finally it is time where we are starting to see some of the use cases really progress, and we will see more of that as the device capability rises there. Yeah.
Thank you. We have talked about scalability of the networks, and we have discussed about this point before, but Maria, from your perspective, how the networks of the future can be designed with agility, flexibility to meet the future demand and any new technologies which are coming?
It's a perfect question. I don't think that there is a single network design case in this case, but I think we should follow a few principles for future networks. And one of them is obviously that the network should be open to be able to be flexible and agile in that sense, disaggregated. I see them as disaggregated. Also autonomous. That's as AT&T, for example, in the USA, they see their network in like 5-10 years without any human interaction. So, and universal, obviously. And universal meaning that we should stick to some common standards and have a common interfaces, right? So either it's 3GPP or ITU, but it should be common standard.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It would be wrong if I don't say anything when you talk about Open RAN, right? So I think it is very important what Maria just said. But there are some fundamentals to network performance that should always be considered. So the purpose-built RAN, as it stands today, needs to make sure that there's feature parity and performance parity as we move forward. That is the fundamental thing. We had claps in the room when we said UAE is number one. We cannot lose that. We need to have that performance level in place. So that's very important that purpose-built RAN stays. And then we develop together as an industry the right open interfaces, which we are committed to doing, and ensuring that we're building our approach towards use cases such as enterprise and other. I think the industry together is focused on opening the front hall, for example, and we have experiences and trials ongoing. But I just want to make sure that the performance parity, the feature parity, all of these things that we've built together as an industry, operators, needs to be there. Otherwise, we will have many challenges when it comes to networks of the future, so to say. So just wanted to add that to Maria.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Gunther, I'd like to ask a question to the tech guy you are. We have been talking about the customer experience and user experience, and this is something we need to put as a top priority for the networks of the future. So as a technology network leader, how can we put this as a top priority for the future networks that we will be developing? How can we put the end user experience as a real top priority?
Thank you. Very good question. As the chief nerd of the network, I have kicked off in the run-up to the big mega event last year several AI initiatives. And I did it because I thought we are moving in such a complex world that customer experience is defined by so many factors that it's impossible for us humans to overlook them. So what we need is new tools. And I have kicked off several, and two of them we are public, so I can talk about them. One is, and I like also to split it between big and very established vendors and small vendors. So we did with a small startup Beyond a case in our network operations where we were using machine learning and the AI to predict future errors in the network. And we used that knowledge of getting it 1 hour, sometimes 4 hours earlier to get our maintenance team ready to react to it, and also the planners. That was very helpful, and that increases customer experience because you are able, ideally, to detect earlier than it happens, or at least to react very, very quickly. So that's one side of how the new tools can help us to increase customer experience. The other was what we did with Ericsson. We did a digital twin concept. We knew that the Lusail Stadium would be very important, having the final game. And we said every game we have to improve. So we built a digital twin of the stadium, and we tested several methods, several thousands of optimizations, especially for the outdoor area. So we knew when people come out, it would be a little bit hot under the collar, because basically the whole stadium was exiting via one big exit. And that is always a challenge for a network. And so with every game, we got a little bit better. We achieved an improvement of the downlink speed of like 9%, of the uplink speed of 11%. We were able to carry 50% more traffic. And that shows you that the usage of this artificial intelligence tool for the network of the future will bring you big benefit for the network and the capacity side, but also for customer experience, of course.
Thank you. Samir, we agreed to come back to our keyword, partnerships.
Yeah.
And as final question, I would like to ask you, what kind of strategic partnerships, what kind of business models do we need to consider to develop these networks of the future?
That's a really good question, because it's not only one area. I mean, we're talking about infrastructure, that's for sure. And obviously, our major vendors and partners like Nokia and Samsung have played a very important role, not just in making sure we work together on creating what products and services that we need that fit our pain points, right? Like, I think in my mind, there's always this challenge between creating technology for the sake of technology, because it's cool, it's faster, it's quicker, but there's also the aspects of the operation, the automation. So we've done a lot of work on, for example, slice orchestration. We talked about it, why is it not up and running so far? Why hasn't very few operators actually demonstrated the practical commercial use of a slice? It sounds straightforward, but it's not, to be very frank. For example, Teles has won a contract with General Motors, biggest car manufacturer in the world. We connect all their 1.5 million vehicles in Canada using our own connectivity. But guess what? That's not the beginning. That's not the end state. Because we're giving like a price per gig, that's not a great business model. So future products and services need to be keeping in mind what the customer demands are. So we all need to be listening to what our customers are telling us. And they're not just telling us, oh, speed is cool. Oh, it is. But they're talking about ease of use. How do I get this? I don't have to worry about like defining, 28 parameters for a slice before I actually know what the slice is. And then, of course, the various commercial models. So finding partners who would listen to you, to your pain points, translate that into plans which are achievable, knowing the pressures that we're going through, reduction of ARPU. Let's be innovative, at least. Well, if we need to use AI, let's use AI. But if it's not, then it's going to be a hurdle in our way. Let's find other ways to work together. So in the AI scope of work, we've partnered with a bunch. But honestly, I find some of our traditional telco partners are also in the same pressure applies to them. The cost of manufacturing the hardware. So what I offer here, and that's what we at Teles pride ourselves in, we are very collaborative. So we extend our hands to other operators and say, if you have great lessons learned, let's share this. We don't have these forums are one of few worldwide where you actually can sit and talk on the side and say best practices, right? So operators need to do that among themselves. And then, of course, we work together, our partners that are willing to come to the table to sit together and create plans which are realistic and hit our profitability, but also keeping in mind our bottom line and the ever-decreasing ARPUs that we're all facing.
Thank you, Samir. Time up. So thank you very much, our dear panelists, for taking time to discuss this afternoon about this interesting topic around infrastructure. We've discussed about sharing, we got some interesting feedbacks about experiences in the region and globally. Discussed the AI, the hype about AI, but we tried at least to discuss it from a network angle or perspective. And we had a brief look into the future what this network of the future will look like. So thank you again very much for taking the time to talk, and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.